Have you ever wondered what happens when a cat's survival instinct clashes with unexpected compassion? Brace yourself for a tale that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the animal kingdom. My name is Ginger, and I'm not your average house cat. I'm a survivor, a loner, a creature of the wild. For years, I've roamed the rugged terrain of Whispering Pines National Forest in West Virginia, relying on nothing but my wits and instincts to stay alive. The humans around here, they call me Ginger because of my fiery orange coat, but I've never needed a name. I've never needed anyone. Or so I thought. It was a crisp autumn morning when my life took an unexpected turn. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a familiar comfort in my solitary existence. I was perched on my favorite moss-covered rock overlooking a clearing that had been bustling with human activity just the day before. The Whispering Pines Community Church had held their annual summer picnic here, filling the air with laughter, music, and the tantalizing aroma of grilled meats. Now all that remained were the telltale signs of human presence: flattened grass, discarded paper plates, and the lingering scent of hot dogs and hamburgers. As I surveyed my domain, I couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority. These humans, with their noisy gatherings and wasteful habits, they knew nothing of true survival. I hopped down from my perch, my movements fluid and silent as I began my usual scavenging routine. A half-eaten hot dog bun here, a few stray potato chips there, and a small piece of fried chicken. It wasn't a feast, but it was enough to take the edge off my hunger. I was about to move on, to continue my endless patrol of my territory, when I heard it. A whimper. It was faint, barely audible over the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze, but to my keen ears, it was as clear as a bell. A young animal in distress. My first instinct was to ignore it. Survival in the wild demands self-reliance, and I had no time for weaklings. But as the whimpering continued, growing more desperate with each passing moment, something stirred within me. A feeling I hadn't experienced in a long, long time. Curiosity? Perhaps. But there was something more. A faint echo of a memory, long buried beneath years of hardship and solitude. Against my better judgment, I found myself moving towards the sound. I crept through the underbrush, my body low to the ground, every muscle tense and ready for action. The scent grew stronger, young, canine, and tinged with fear. As I rounded a thicket of rhododendron, I saw it. A German shepherd puppy, no more than a few months old, tangled in a mass of thorny vines. Its coat, which should have been a rich black and tan, was matted with mud and leaves. Its eyes, wide with fear and confusion, locked onto mine as I emerged from the shadows. For a moment, we just stared at each other. The puppy's whimpers turned to yelps of pain as it struggled against its thorny prison, each movement driving the sharp barbs deeper into its skin. I could have walked away. I should have walked away. This wasn't my problem. It was just another casualty of the wilderness, a testament to the harsh realities of survival. But I couldn't move. Something held me there, rooted to the spot. Was it the puppy's utter vulnerability? The way it looked at me with a mixture of fear and pleading? Or was it something deeper, a flicker of memory from my own kittenhood, long before I'd become the hardened survivor I was today? I couldn't explain it, not even to myself. But in that moment, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I approached the puppy cautiously, making a soft chirping sound, a sound I hadn't used since I was a kitten. The puppy stopped struggling, its tail giving a tentative wag. Carefully, I began to work at the vines, using my paws and teeth to gently pull them away from the puppy's legs and body. It wasn't easy, the thorns were sharp, and more than once I felt them prick my own skin. But I persevered, driven by an inexplicable urge to help this helpless creature. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the puppy was free. It collapsed onto the ground, exhausted and trembling. To my surprise, it licked my paw, a gesture of gratitude that I found both foreign and oddly touching. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, I realized we had a problem. The puppy was clearly lost, separated from its humans and utterly helpless in the wilderness. The night was approaching, bringing with it all the dangers of the forest, predators, cold, and the unforgiving darkness. I looked back towards the clearing, towards the faint lights of the nearby town of Whispering Pines. I knew the dangers of the human world all too well: cars, unfriendly dogs, people who didn't take kindly to strays. But I also knew that the puppy had no chance of survival in the wilderness. In that moment, I made another decision that surprised even me. I would lead the puppy towards the town, towards the possibility of help and safety. It was a risk, but one I was unexpectedly willing to take. And so began our journey, an unlikely pair bound by circumstance and an unspoken understanding. The puppy, weak and limping, struggled to keep up with my pace. I found myself pausing frequently, waiting for it to catch its breath, feeling an unfamiliar sense of responsibility settling over me like a heavy blanket. As we traveled through the night, the forest came alive with sounds, the hooting of owls, the rustling of nocturnal creatures, the distant howl of a coyote. With each unsettling noise, the puppy pressed closer to my side, seeking comfort and protection, and despite myself, I found I didn't mind. There was something oddly comforting about the warmth of another living being, something I hadn't experienced in years. The journey was arduous. The terrain was rough, a tangle of undergrowth, fallen logs, and rocky outcrops. While I navigated it with ease, the puppy stumbled frequently, its inexperience and weakness making every step a challenge. But it persevered, driven by some innate trust that I was leading it to safety. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, I realized how exhausted and hungry we both were. The puppy's condition was visibly worsening, its coat dull and matted, its eyes sunken, its movements becoming increasingly lethargic. I knew we needed to find food and water soon. Luck was on our side. I managed to catch a mouse, quickly killing it with a swift bite. I ate most of it, the small bones crunching between my teeth, but I felt an unfamiliar pang of guilt as I looked at the puppy watching me with hungry eyes. In a gesture that surprised even me, I nudged the remaining portion towards the puppy. It wasn't much, but it was something. The puppy devoured the offering, its tail wagging weakly in gratitude. Our journey continued, each step bringing us closer to the town, but also draining what little energy we had left. Thirst became our most pressing concern. I remembered a small creek that ran along the edge of the woods, closer to the town, and I veered in that direction, hoping it wasn't dry. The trek to the creek was grueling. The puppy collapsed several times, its body trembling with exhaustion. Each time I had to nudge it, urge it to keep moving. I was starting to feel the strain myself, my own energy reserves dwindling. When we finally reached the creek, it was little more than a trickle, but it was enough. We both drank greedily, the cool water soothing our parched throats. It wasn't enough to fully revive us, but it gave us the strength to continue. As the afternoon wore on, the woods began to thin, giving way to open fields. In the distance, I could see the rooftops of houses, smell the scent of wood smoke and cooking food. We were close. So close, but the most dangerous part of our journey was yet to come. I kept us to the edge of the fields, using the tall grass for cover. The puppy, sensing the proximity of humans, began to whine and pull in the direction of the town. I hissed softly, urging caution. I knew all too well the dangers that awaited us: cars, dogs, unfriendly humans. Suddenly, a car roared past on a nearby road, its engine a deafening growl that sent the puppy into a panic. It yelped in terror, pressing itself against my side. I felt my fur bristle, realizing how vulnerable we were in the open field. We had to reach the cover of the houses before another car came along. We were almost there, just a few hundred yards from the first houses on the outskirts of Whispering Pines when I spotted it. A small, overgrown garden behind one of the houses. It looked like a relatively safe place to rest and assess our situation. I guided the puppy towards it, pushing through a gap in the hedge. As we collapsed in the tall grass, hidden from view, I found myself reflecting on our journey. This hardship had forged an unexpected bond between us. I, the hardened stray, had found myself responsible for a creature even more vulnerable than myself. The weight of that responsibility was heavy, but strangely, I didn't resent it. As the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across our hiding place, I studied our surroundings. The houses around us were mostly older homes, with peeling paint and slightly ramshackle porches. Some had neatly tended gardens, others were neglected, like the one we were hiding in. It was a quiet residential street, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors and life moved at a slower pace. I knew we couldn't stay hidden in the garden forever. The puppy needed food and proper care, and I needed to assess the risks of venturing further into town. I was familiar with the outskirts of Whispering Pines, having occasionally scavenged for scraps near the local grocery store, but I'd always avoided close contact with humans. The puppy whimpered, breaking my train of thought. It tried to stand, but its legs buckled and it collapsed again. It looked at me with pleading eyes, its tail thumping weakly against the ground. I felt a pang of sympathy, a feeling I was still struggling to reconcile with my survival instincts. I made a decision. I would scout the immediate area, looking for any signs of potential help, an open door, a bowl of pet food left outside, any indication of kindness. But I also needed to be wary of potential dangers, other dogs, unfriendly cats, and people who might shoo us away, or worse. I nudged the puppy gently, indicating that it should stay put. It whined again, but seemed to understand. I slipped through the gap in the hedge and onto the sidewalk, moving cautiously, keeping low to the ground, my senses on high alert. As I crept along the street, staying close to the houses and using the shadows for cover, I noticed a house with a brightly colored flower garden in front. An elderly woman was kneeling among the flowers, her back to me. She wore a faded floral dress and a straw hat, and she was humming softly to herself. She seemed harmless enough. I continued my reconnaissance. I saw a house with a dog bowl on the porch, but a large, barking dog chained in the yard deterred me. Another house had a cat flap in the door, but the scent of a territorial tomcat warned me away. I was about to return to the puppy when I heard the sound of children's laughter. Across the street, a group of kids were playing in a park, throwing a ball, their faces bright with excitement. A pang of something, longing perhaps, went through me. I had never known the carefree joy of play, my life having always been a struggle for survival. I shook off the feeling and focused on my mission. I returned to the overgrown garden, my assessment complete. The elderly woman with the flowers seemed like our best option. She appeared gentle and kind, and her house was relatively quiet and safe. I nudged the puppy again, this time urging it to follow me. It struggled to its feet, its legs trembling, and limped after me. We crept through the gap in the hedge and onto the sidewalk. I led the puppy towards the house with the flower garden. The elderly woman was still there, tending to her roses. The puppy, driven by instinct and desperation, started to whine louder. It stumbled towards the woman, its tail wagging weakly. The woman turned, startled by the sound. She saw the puppy, took in its emaciated body and pleading eyes, and her expression softened immediately. She put down her gardening tools and knelt down, speaking in a soothing voice. "Well, hello there, little one," she said. "Where did you come from? You look lost and hungry." The puppy collapsed at her feet, whimpering. I watched from the shadows of the hedge, my amber eyes fixed on the woman. I was ready to flee at the first sign of danger, but something told me that this woman was different. She was kind. She was our best hope. The woman, whose name I would later learn was Rose, gently scooped up the trembling puppy. She cradled it in her arms, feeling the fragility of its bones beneath its matted fur. Her heart ached at the sight of its condition. "You poor thing," she murmured, stroking the puppy's head. "You're skin and bones. Let's get you inside and see what we can do." She carried the puppy into her house, a cozy old-fashioned bungalow filled with the scent of lavender and freshly baked bread. I crept closer, drawn by an inexplicable need to ensure the puppy's safety. Through a window, I watched as Rose placed the puppy gently on a soft rug in the living room. She examined it closely, noting the matted fur, the ticks clinging to its skin, and the sores on its paws. Rose filled a bowl with water and placed it before the puppy. It lapped at the water greedily, its whole body shaking with the effort. Then she went to the kitchen and returned with some leftover chicken and rice. The puppy ate ravenously, as if it hadn't eaten in days, which I knew was probably true. As I watched this scene unfold, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that the puppy was safe and being cared for, pride in having successfully guided it to help, and something else, something I couldn't quite name. A longing, perhaps for the comfort and safety that I had never known. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't notice Rose approaching the window. When I did, I tensed, ready to bolt. But she just smiled softly, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Hello there, beautiful," she said gently. "Are you this little one's guardian angel?" I blinked, surprised by her perception. She opened the window a crack and set a small dish of tuna on the windowsill. "Thank you for bringing this little one to me," she said. "You're welcome to stay too if you'd like." For a moment, I was tempted. The tuna smelled delicious, and the warmth emanating from the house was inviting. But the call of the wild, the freedom of the forest, was too strong to ignore. I had done my part. The puppy was safe. With one last look at the puppy, now curled up contentedly on the rug, I turned and slipped back into the shadows. As I made my way back to the forest, I felt different. Lighter, somehow. I'd always thought that survival meant looking out for oneself, that compassion was a weakness. But maybe, just maybe, there was strength in kindness too. From that day on, I often found myself drawn back to Rose's house. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of the puppy growing stronger, healthier, happier with each passing day, and each time Rose would leave a little treat for me on the windowsill. I never went inside, never let her pet me, but in my own way, I had found a home. A place where kindness existed, where survival didn't have to mean solitude, and though I remained a creature of the wild, I carried with me the warmth of that unexpected connection, a reminder that even in the harshest of worlds, compassion can bloom in the most unlikely of places. As for the puppy, well, that's another story. But I like to think that somewhere out there it's living its best life, perhaps even remembering the strange orange cat who led it to safety. And maybe, just maybe, it's learned the same lesson I did, that sometimes the greatest act of survival is to help another survive.